I'm on a quest to find the most terrifying game out there. I love horror games, and I wanted to embark on a journey to discover the best, and I thought, you know what, I'll take you guys along with me. I'm looking for an intriguing storyline, eerie atmosphere, disturbing imagery, grotesque monsters, and of course, bone-chilling gameplay. This should go without saying, but this is based on my opinion. But if you have any games you want to recommend for this series you think would take the top spot, feel free to let me know. On today's episode, we'll be starting off small with a short game known as The Floor is Breathing. You play from the perspective of a serial killer who is slowly losing their mind days before they are caught. You slowly lose perception of what's real as the guilt of what you've done sets in. It's only around 20 minutes, it's very short, but it's masterfully woven together. This game takes inspiration and has a similar tone to The Telltale Heart, a poem by Edgar Allan Poe. If you don't know, the poem is about the author who kills an old man because of his vulture-like eye that haunted him each night. The author then hides his body beneath the floorboards just before the officers arrive. However, the old man's beating heart grew louder and louder. With each defiant lie the author weaved, the heart beated louder. In a burst of chaotic outrage, the author reveals the body beneath the floorboards, confessing to his crime. The heart never did beat, it was only in his imagination. And with that, I hope you enjoy. The game begins with a recording of the interrogation after the killer was captured.
And so you understand what we found. 4 mutilated corpses inside your home.
It's clear that we've lost our mind, so let's backtrack a few days to see how we got here. Immediately, this setting is very creepy. It's dark, isolated, and uninviting, yet it's our home. I actually didn't notice this until reviewing the footage, but the ceiling is also the floor. It's a great way of subtly showing us that already the killer is going insane. Now, you're not going to find exhilarating, heart-pounding gameplay with this one. Rather, it's a slow burn. Each room, each corner feels like a threat. You almost experience that feeling of paranoia as the game continues, and it's really good. I like it. I found this newspaper article shortly after detailing the divorce rates are at an all-time high. At first, I thought this was just some, random fill-in text, but as the pieces come together, you start to understand why it's there. The page goes on rambling about our consequences, about how we deserve everything that comes after what we did. It's a reflection of perhaps our guilt or knowing we trapped ourselves in a corner. There's nowhere to hide forever. For now, though, we have a to-do list to complete. Check for monsters under the bed, fix the door with a hammer, watch TV, and go to sleep. What a riveting afternoon. The first 2 are done without much hassle. It's when watching the TV that things become a bit more haunting. The screen flashes 4 distorted faces. We can assume that these are the faces of our victims, but not much is known at the moment. The first day overall is uninteresting. Besides the TV, nothing really happens. I went to bed promptly after and was greeted with this nightmare sequence. I'm sorry, but if I can just be blunt real quick, analog horror is easily one of the creepiest genres of horror. I hate it. Like, if it's done right, it can be scarring to the psyche. The Floor is Breathing doesn't go that far, but the imagery depicted still gave me goosebumps, which I'll talk about later. It's the next day, and at this point I realize that we're waking up rather late in the afternoon. I don't know if it means anything, but I just wanted to point it out. Most of our to-do list stays the same. Fix the boarded window, check for monsters, watch TV, and go to bed again. We know at this point that the killer knows they're in danger of being caught, hence boarding up the window. When we start to watch TV again, it shows a picture of the first victim. And then this happens.
Subject has various gross lesions across the chest and face, hemorrhaged bilaterally in the conjunctiva. The subject has rope burns around the neck and wrists. The subject has suffered the loss of 3 fingers. Subject was found hidden under the floorboards with 3 other individuals.
This scene truly disturbed me. The floor shifting and breathing beneath, the hanging nooses, it's all so wrong. Especially the floors. As someone with asthma, I was almost offended by the fact that the floor breathes better than I do. But now you have an idea of how the game works. Each day focuses on a victim and their death. It struck me though, as I was playing, why nooses? I mean, we play as the serial killer. We killed this man without question, so why display imagery of something associated with self-murder? I think I may have an answer for that, but it lies within the next night. If we approach the TV on the chair, a Bible verse appears on screen. I couldn't find any connections as to why the developer would include this. The only thing I can think of is this being a reference to real serial killers. You'd be surprised how many of them claim to be religious, Catholic, or Christian. This may mean we have a religious background, although there's really no evidence to support that. These hallucinations persist until we finally go to bed once again. The third day plays out like most. We fix the door, check for monsters, watch the TV, display in our second victim, and go to bed. However, just before we sleep, the phone starts to ring, almost jolting us back. When we go to answer the phone, the other person on the line says this.
I know what you've done.
The floor is breathing heavier this time, almost like it's gasping for air. The TV starts to float, saturating the room with a dim red. Our to-do list now, like last time, is a bit different. Dear Samantha, I'm writing to inform you that you are welcome to our New Year's Eve party. I know you've been very isolated recently, but I think you'll make fast friends with others. Also, pass on my best wishes to your husband. I haven't seen him for a few weeks. Hope he's doing well. Wishing you the best. We are Samantha. That picture of the distorted inmate in the intro is us. So this message, I think, reveals who the first victim is. I think it's the husband, because whoever this is hasn't seen him in weeks. This also lines up with the newspaper article I mentioned in the beginning about high divorce rates. It all makes sense. When we go back upstairs, we find a corpse inside a trash bag. We pick it up and go back downstairs, leading to this almost ritualistic scene to dispose of the body, beneath the floorboards. The way I see this is like an initiation into going down a path you cannot escape, and we accept. Once the setting has calmed down, we go to bed, only to be interrupted by a loud knock at the door. An unknown man stands near the end of the stairs, which I fully expected a FNAF-style jump scare, but nothing happened, thankfully. We can't go down there yet, so going back to our room, the third victim is displayed. Another verse appears on screen, and an unusually placed door materializes across the hallway. When we enter, we're outside, or at least I think. It's a recollection of the events that happened during this time. I have no idea if there was an artistic reason for having lesser graphics for this part, but my dull monkey brain wants to make some connection. My theory is that we, Samantha, are so fixed on our victims and recent actions that everything else becomes a blur. We come across a note that reveals some troubling backstory.
To my dearest Samantha, how is your husband? Though I suppose you wouldn't know. But I know. I saw what you've done. And I saw how you murdered your son too. You make my blood curl, posting your vile actions online, creating a circus out of the death of your own flesh and blood. Deplorable filth. I have all of it, recorded, saved, and so do the police. You will not escape your crime nor your judgment. Enjoy eternal suffering, you sick, twisted, funny buddy.
This note alone confirms that the first and second victims are our own husband and son. My guess is that the husband wanted a divorce and possibly won our son in court. Samantha doesn't like that, so she makes sure that nobody wins by killing them both. Now, remember on the second night with the hanging ropes? This note states that we posted our vile actions online, making a circus of their deaths. Samantha, we know now, is a sadistic psychopath who takes pleasure in watching people suffer, even if they are her own family, so she probably did this. This falls in line with the specific text in the first body's description. The subject has suffered the loss of 3 fingers. I don't know about you, but removing 3 fingers is not going to kill you. There was no need for us to do that, except to get some sort of twisted high from it. The rope burns were a way to cover up our murder, to make it look like self-induced harm. Or we might have done that for our own entertainment. The third victim was a witness. We don't know who exactly, but based on the introduction, my dearest Samantha, it's someone that's close to the family. In order to cover up our tracks, we kill him and stuff his body beneath the floorboards. The last victim is a lone cop, here at Samantha's house to ask some questions about the recent disappearances. If we pull up our inventory, it's a warrant to search the home. Things go south quickly for Mr. Cop Boy as we find the TV with our face on it shaking violently, which is never a good sign. Samantha appears and immediately kidnaps us. She then takes us to this secret bunker or basement to record her sadistic pleasures, slowly torturing us until we eventually die. I'm sorry, I'm trying to be all serious here, but when looking back at my recording, I was doing the complete opposite.
Oh yeah, spank me, I've been a bad boy!
It helps me cope, alright? It's the last day, the cops have arrived. There's no escape. We go upstairs to go to sleep for the last time. However, fate has another plan for us.
4 murders, and you couldn't even kill yourself. You're crowded by physical and digital evidence.
I honestly don't know what she was about to say there. Filing cabinet. I think she was about to say filing cabinet. And that's the end to The Floor is Breathing. Now, this game was certainly something. The tension in the air throughout my playthroughs was thick. I really thought this game was gonna jump scare me, like there was all the tension there for it, but there was not a single one. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I was tense the whole game and there was no release of tension, but the tension in and of itself, this game does very well. And see, it doesn't really need jump scares. That's how good this game is. You're so anxious about every action you do, and it's because there's not much else to do in this game. You're at the mercy of however the game wants to play out. You can't fight back, you can't choose an alternate ending, just experience the deteriorating mental state of our character. It does hinder the gameplay aspect because it is just a walking simulator, which is, I mean, whatever really. I'm not looking for the most exciting horror game, I'm looking for the best, the scariest. Sometimes the slow burn does pay out, although if it's all slow, then it becomes boring. With The Floor is Breathing, that's really not an issue because the game is only 20 minutes. It's not long enough to feel the negative side effects of a slow burn type of game. It is kinda sad though, there were no monsters here. I didn't expect any, it doesn't really fit into the game's direction. Grotesque monster designs are a personal favoritism of mine, that's why I mentioned this. Any horror game that has spectacular enemy design, actually any game for that matter, immediately intrigues me. The Floor is Breathing makes up for this by using analog horror to its advantage. Again, analog horror is super creepy. The twisted, demented figures that are supposed to be human get me every time. It's a form of body horror that I really like. See, other games will mutilate the human body with mangled corpses or use gore to create that shock value. The Floor is Breathing has barely any gore in it. Actually, well, during the torture scene it did, but that doesn't really count. What it does rather is it distorts the faces of the 4 victims and the killer just enough to where it is vaguely human, but there is something terribly wrong with it. I mean, the first dude kinda looks like Mother Gooseberry from the Outlast trials, and calling her insane is a compliment. These types of mugshots, by the way, are also associated with something bad that has happened. So immediately, these pictures are unnerving to us. Kinda like a missing person ad. The audio design is just as important, if not more. Along with the analog horror, The Floor is Breathing uses old nursery rhymes to depict us killing our victims, which is cute, I guess. Not exactly a fan of it, but sure. For the most part, there is no soundtrack, but silence is a great foreground for rising tension in a video game. The music doesn't depict how you're supposed to feel, the game does. This pairs very well with the atmosphere. A dark, isolated home is a perfect setting for a horror game, and you really can't mess that up. Adding the breathing floor effects is what makes this game unique though. It's almost like we're inside of a living creature, inside of its chest, slowly breathing as we play the game. The entire game makes you feel claustrophobic. There is barely any room to do anything else besides our daily tasks. The developer added no extra details, just the bare bones of what was needed, and in a way it helped create this tight space. It's pretty cool. However, I think what this game did best was the story. It's the scariest part because of how real this situation is. It's happened for sure. Maybe not this specific story has happened, but all the different elements definitely did, and you just combine it together to make this very sadistic character. I also appreciated how easy it is to follow said story. Sometimes horror games do too much in creating an ambiguous storyline. Either way, this game's story is great. We often don't see from the perspective of the killer or monster, so seeing Samantha's descent into madness was brilliant. Now, there was a lot to be desired though. It's not that the game did anything wrong, I just prefer more supernatural stories. Again, this entire series is based on my personal experience and my personal preferences. Experimentation, monsters, cults, things like that. While the realism of this game has its own category of horror that does help, it doesn't compare to how many other games take it a step further and actually play into our own fears. Even without that, this was a great horror game. The Floor is Breathing had a unique perspective that was executed very well. When plugging this game into the spooky scale, which is strictly based on how scary it was, I'm giving The Floor is Breathing a 50%, right down the middle. It was great, don't get me wrong, but the gameplay hindered the score a lot, and I just think there are so many other horror games that I'll talk about that make this one look like child's play. I think an average score to start this potential series is a good note to begin with. But of course, feel free to leave your own suggestions down below. I have a few horror games recorded already, but I'm all about taking your top choices or your bad choices and doing a ranking for them too. But yeah, that's all I have for you today. I really appreciate you guys watching. If you always make it to the end here, I appreciate you very much. And just kind of a little bit of a life update, if you don't know, I am going back to college at the time of recording this a few days, Thursday. So I'm going back in a few days, and so videos will be a little bit slower. I'm going to try and still upload like once every week and a half. If I can condense it down, that'd be great, but we'll see. But if you did enjoy this video, be sure to leave a like and to subscribe for more content like this. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care, everyone, and of course, stay safe.